Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by Amy Riley Beveridge and Kane Corns with you. And Kane, what a weekend of semi-final action we have just seen. We'll start with our big story. It came at NG Stadium. Brisbane through to a prelim final for the fourth time in 5 years, following a remarkable comeback.
Yeah, one of the biggest comebacks you'll ever see in a final. 44 points down. They looked nowhere to sort of start the third term. They went on a couple of bursts, but essentially it was the last quarter where they kicked the last 6 goals of the game to book their place into a prelim final against the Cats.
44 points down midway through the third term. They kicked 5 straight goals to end the third quarter. They then kicked the last 6 goals of the game to secure the win. This last quarter was absolutely insane. The way they just put the foot down and the Giants couldn't stop them.
No, they couldn't. The Giants just completely stopped. There was a bit chaotic, really, about the way that they went into their forward line. They had multiple opportunities, and it just really was make it up on the run. Of course, they had some individuals step up. Zorko kicked 2 goals for the game after being beaten badly and having goals conceded against him against Peatling. But yeah, Fletcher's finish here I just thought was enormous for a young player. We'll get to Ashcroft shortly in his influence, but essentially it was this man, Joe Daniher, who took these 2 moments on to kick this goal, and it completely sums up his career. That's what he can do. He can be the match winner from the boundary. We saw some of the bad Joe, which we often do, but these 2 last moments from him, he was a difference. Absolutely clutch to take that mark against a very good opponent and to go back and slot it, kick 4 for the night. He was the difference in the game.
He certainly was. It was a fantastic performance from him, particularly in that final quarter. Just got the better of Sam Taylor. Let's get to our Saturday star now, because when the Lions had their backs to the wall, it was Will Ashcroft, their father-son gun, playing in just his second final, who got them back into it. 17 disposals in the second half alone.
Yeah, it was the back end of the third term when he went in there. So Lockie Neal was well beaten by Bedford. There was some other, particularly their forwards were really down on form. Rayner was nowhere. They didn't get anything out of him. So they had some others. Charlie Cameron was quiet, although he had a couple of moments like that one there. But it was Will Ashcroft, who's been building really nicely. So 27, it's a really good number. He uses it so well. He's composed, seriously tough inside, and Lockie Neal spoke about the fact that he said, just get it to me on the move, because he was feeling it and he was so clean, the best midfielder for the Lions on the ground tonight.
He certainly was. Where do you look back on this if you're the Giants? It's just such a hard one for them to comprehend. So have a look at this. This is the biggest finals comebacks in AFL, VFL history, second biggest of all time. They were 44 points up at the 17-minute mark of the third quarter. Last week, they were 28 points up against the Swans. They were outscored by 57 points in both of their final terms in the 2 finals they played. Just a heartbreaking way for them to go out.
Disaster. They had both of those games so much on their terms. So whether they can sustain that style of game for 4 quarters, clearly they can't, because they had Sydney on toast last week. They completely outplayed Brisbane today. Like, Jesse Hogan looked like he was going to kick 10. He had that pain matchup. They had all that worked out. Their midfield was on top. Their defenders usually are pretty good, although they were beaten late in the last quarter tonight. So nothing but one of the biggest chokes we've ever seen and biggest failures we've ever seen in finals to have the position with the double chance and to go out in straight sets after you've been in those winning positions. As I keep saying, these opportunities it's not just guaranteed you rock up next year and you're in the same boat. So they're hard to win premierships, and when you're in a position like they have been the last 2 weeks and to not get it done, this one's going to sting for a long time, and it's going to be a tough one mentally to deal with and regroup as this footy club.
They'll have a few regrettable moments, none more so than this moment involving Brent Daniels. So this could have put them 24 points up in the last quarter. A free kick's given to the Giants top of the goal square. He takes advantage, tries to kick it off the ground when he had so much time as it was. Goes through for a behind, advantage is paid. The game changes. The Brisbane kicks the next 5 goals after that to win the game.
Disaster. I mean, and how's he going to sleep for the whole of the off-season knowing that? It wasn't the only poor moment he had either. He had some good moments tonight, as he always does. He's such a good player, but he gave away a couple of 50s as well. One of them was really hot, but that's the one there that was the change in the game and the momentum.
So Brisbane through to a preliminary final where they'll take on Geelong next Saturday evening. That's a twilight game at the MCG. So if the Lions do win through to a grand final, they can fly back home to Brisbane that night before travelling back to the MCG the following week. Let's get to our Amy Clangers now. Who covers Clangers? Amy does a remarkable moment in this Friday night clash where Blake Hardwick kicks the ball directly into Mitch Georgiades' head, or Darcy Byrne-Jones' head, sorry. And then he kicks the goal, Darcy Byrne-Jones.
Yeah, that hurts, doesn't it? When the margin is so close, probably the biggest clanger of the year. I think it was Mitch Georgiades' head, and Marshall and Burne-Jones fought for it, but Darcy Burne-Jones back in his forward role, it was pretty good, kicked 2 big goals.
Let's get to that game Friday evening at the Adelaide Oval, where Port Adelaide came through to a preliminary final with a classic win. Some of these last quarter moments were just fantastic. What a game of football this was.
Yeah, how good's that goal from the Wizard? He kicked 3 and all 3 of them were great. Horne-Francis went forward in the last quarter and is having a big final series. Thought he was their best player last week, certainly in their top handful of players. And this from Chol finds Ginnivan. Wasn't a great night for Ginnivan, but he did have a couple of moments where he bobbed up and kicked 2 goals. This one with just over 10 minutes to go. It was just an absolute classic. I thought Port Adelaide's pressure was unbelievable. Georgiades' 2 goals that he kicked in the last quarter in a low-scoring game were incredibly clutch, and Port Adelaide just kept coming, but as did Hawthorn. They had some moments there. Finn McGuinness kicks this goal, an unlikely goal scorer, and this just the ebbs and flows of this game. And these are the moment for the captain, James Sicily, who was swung forward, had 3 shots at goal in the last quarter. 2 of them he probably should have kicked. You wouldn't have wanted the ball in better hands than James Sicily. And then Port Adelaide hold on and win such a cutthroat final, and the emotion spilled over after the game, as you can see with the players on the bench and the coach, Ken Hinkley.
They certainly did. We'll get to that in just a little moment, because the Hawthorn Footy Club had their chances to win the game late, and this none more so than this moment. So they had a couple of entries here. You'll see Radaglia spoils it. And just at this moment here, we want to highlight this. All of these Hawthorn players that are in a position to potentially win in the game just mindlessly start walking away from the danger area. So then when Massimo D'Ambrosio does go back inside 50, breaks a couple of tackles, they've got 10, 12 players in irrelevant positions because they've just all vacated that dangerous area.
Yeah, they just got sucked in. They just like bees to the honeypot. All of the players just wanted to get a kick in that moment. There wasn't any discipline to hold your structure and hold it deep forward, but terrific coaching. Radaglia to go back behind the ball. They also had another one, the winger sliding back as well. So in that moment, with that amount of time left on the clock for the coach's box to get that message out for the players to be able to execute, and Radaglia was the right person to save the game.
Flashpoint after the game involving Port Adelaide coach Ken Hinkley. Here's how it all played out.
Oh, look, I'll be honest, Jack said what he said through the week, and I just told him after the game he wasn't going anywhere. Right. And you know what? I don't know social media. I just do what I do. I probably shouldn't have done it. I should apologise to the boys. I shouldn't have probably done it. But the reality was, you throw something our way, we're going to throw something back occasionally.
There was an incident after the game where I had some words with a Hawthorn player that I wish I hadn't had in a moment that I shouldn't have had. But it was an emotional game, a big result. There was stuff said during last week that I certainly didn't enjoy, but I shouldn't have let that moment get to me.
We had a very young player who was having had some very aggressive words said to him by a much older man who's been in the game for a long time, and the captain of my club stood up for him. And so I understand the emotions of this time of year are really, really difficult, and I'm really proud of our captain, who would have been just as emotional, who was able to stand up and lead in a way that he could be proud of.
Well, what did you make of that, Kane? Because it's dominated the airwaves ever since. What did you make of it?
It's the biggest overreaction I've seen this year. I can't believe the overreaction from the Hawthorn Footy Club. Like, have they got the glassiest glass jaws in football right now? For them to be able to do what they've done all year, which we've loved and supported them in doing it, to get under the skin of the opposition, to really celebrate, to be in the face of the opposition supporters, to do what they've done on social media. And we've all sort of said, well, good on you. We've been along for the ride. But the minute it comes back at them in a moment that wasn't threatening, it wasn't aggressive, it was 20 metres away from the opponent, there was no swear words said from Ken Hinkley to Jack Ginnivan. I can't believe Ken thought he needed to apologise. I just thought it was a great moment in a great season after a great game. This guy's been under pressure for probably the best part of 5 to 7 years. When every game that he coaches and loses, he feels the heat from the opposition. People were questioning his future as coach if he lost this game, and that's the worst thing he did after a game after Jack Ginnivan had been a real clown on social media. So it's one of the great overreactions I've ever seen from former Hawthorn players in the media, from the Hawthorn Footy Club, from Sam Mitchell, from James Sicily, who spoke again at the airport. He was almost in tears. I was like, toughen up. Like, let's be honest. You've given it out all year, and we've loved it, and we've loved the ride that Hawthorn have been on. But the minute it came back in just a slightly cheeky way, cheeky I would call it, not aggressive, they haven't been able to handle it. So I'd be really disappointed if I was a Hawthorn supporter seeing that reaction.
Agree with you in the sense that if you give it, you have to be prepared to take it back. Should it have been coming from the coach, though? I guess that's and Massimo D'Ambrosio in that vision is actually saying, you're the coach behind it.
Yeah.
Should it have been coming from the coach?
Yeah, well, I think you can understand in that moment. Like, this is a cutthroat final. The guy's coaching career has been questioned almost every week this year. He's had fans boo him probably 10 weeks ago, wanting him gone. His finals record has been questioned, and they hang on with the most incredible win with probably 5 out of their best 10 players out of the side, and he's won, and that's the reaction. I know for a fact they use the Jack Ginnivan Instagram post all week as motivation, so they're laughing at him like he's a clown in a clown show at times, Jack Ginnivan. So we've seen coaches do it before. Alistair Clarkson's done it before. He's got himself into trouble. I've seen Brad Scott try and line up David King on the ground. Yeah. Seen Kevin Sheedy do the jacket, which we all loved, and that was mimicked for years on end.
Yeah, it still is.
Like, some of the great coaches have had moments like that. Mick Moldhouse has had it. So I just think, as I said repeatedly, I haven't seen a bigger overreaction this year.
I think the one thing you can take out of it is that that's why the players play for Ken Hinkley. They love that Ken Hinkley has their back, and they certainly played for Ken, particularly in the first half of last night's game. Their pressure was manic right throughout, but in the first half, they set the tempo, didn't they?
Yeah, and it was Connor Rozee who I thought was terrific. Zach Butters needed that moment. He just needed to really grit his teeth, as I said. He wasn't a serious injury, and he did that. Thought he had 3 really courageous moments. But look at all the numbers. Contested possessions, +16. They win clearance. They win inside 50s, +9. They win ground ball. Only the 4th time this year that Hawthorn haven't won the ground ball. Sweet, and some of his tackling was just brilliant. And they were all over them. So the focus for Port Adelaide, shut down their ball movement, force them wide, shut down the corridor. They really restricted their uncontested marks and bring serious pressure, go all the way with their high half forward. So it was one of the better nights I've seen from the Port Adelaide coaches group collectively, just to pretty much render Hawthorn impotent in all the strengths that they have. And if it wasn't for some pretty average umpiring, Hawthorn would have found it hard to score.
Port Adelaide had some unsung heroes stand tall for them across the course of the night. Jace Burgoyne, I thought, was fantastic. He's done this a couple of times on the big stage. He was almost best on ground in a showdown earlier this year. And Logan Evans, what a find he's been since coming to the club in the mid-season draft.
But he's been a great pickup, absolutely. So you've got no Farrell, you've got no Houston, you've got no Burton, who didn't get up for this game. What are we going to do? Well, we'll put Jace Burgoyne, who's been a wing all year and really well, has done it really well to half back for a career best night, drifted down and kicked that goal, which was really important. But for a skinny player, and you can look at him, and in 2 years' time, he's going to be unbelievable, because he's going to have another couple of pre-seasons in the gym, but he doesn't lose contest and he doesn't lose his feet at ground level. So a few of those young players in a cutthroat final against really good opposition stood up, and they should be able to build their careers around this.
Port Adelaide will take on Sydney next Friday night in the other prelim final. What happened the last time they played?
They won by 112, but I'm not sure that's relevant anymore.
It's going to be an absolute epic on Friday night. Todd Marshall will miss that game with concussion, though, so unfortunate for him. Port Adelaide against Sydney, SCG Friday night. Geelong against Brisbane at the MCG on Saturday evening. We'll be back Saturday night to wrap it all up. See you then.
Want to get all the latest footy news in one hit? From injuries to breaking news, the latest from the coaches, the Footy Feed team has you covered. Watch it now on afl.com.au and the AFL Live app, or wherever you get your podcasts.